All right, welcome back. It is still news up. Yes, let's dive into our very next conversation. We're looking at this discussion around marriage and inheritance. Greater focus will be on protecting widows against deprivation and abuse. The stories we hear often is the story of when a man dies, a woman becomes widowed, culture, tradition, not even the law this time. Most times it's often culture and tradition that takes the old sway where the widows are deprived from having a good life or having access to their late husband's properties or inheritances and all of that. Let's look at what the law says this morning and let's bring some clarity to this. It's important, even whilst alive as a man, it's important you begin to have this conversation to ensure that your wives are protected after your demise. My guest, this is my very first guest. We're actually expecting another guest, but then Ifeoluwa Drodola Jimo, a lawyer, joins us right about now in the studios. So good to have you on the show, Ife.
Such a pleasure. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so good to have you join us. This is a very... Tony, you want to run with this?
Yes.
Because maybe as a woman...
I thought you wanted to leave first. Give a man who understands the perspective of everyone. But just let me ask you, the issue of widow inheritance is a big conversation in Nigeria today. What we see is a lot of women, when men die, the women don't have rights, or the widows, their widows don't have rights. The people, the custodians are supposed to enforce this, such as the family, maybe the law, fail these women time after time. So my question is, what rights do you think women have under the current law we have in Nigeria? I know there's the customary law, there's the law of the land. Which one takes precedence in the course of this context? Which one can help or should help the woman get justice?
Thank you very much. The law is very clear on inheritance, marriage and inheritance, be it customary or statutory marriages. Okay? And a recent landmark case that helps widows in this situation is the UKJ case. Because what usually happens with inheritance is, in some cultures, females are not allowed to inherit. So it's not that widows are totally thrown off. A widow who probably has a male child might get to inherit something. But the ones with female children are thrown out the window. But this case I just spoke about is a landmark case that has made it compulsory for children of a deceased to inherit, whether they are male or they are female, as well as the widow. If you're talking about statutory, the law is also very clear on it. Okay, you are allowed to inherit if you're a surviving spouse, according to the customary law of the land. So it's not like women are totally not allowed to inherit. It's just that some cultures frown against inheritances when it has to do with no male children in the family.
Okay, sorry to add, but when a woman is married and the husband has a will, does the husband's family legally have the right to take over the property without considering the widow, given that the husband has a will?
Or better still, let me add to that. There is a will for
legally
for a start, and then there is a provision by the law. Where do we place the will over the law? Or is it the law that takes precedence over the will, or the will takes precedence over the law?
It's a fantastic question. The will takes precedence over the law. Unfortunately, Nigerian men do not like to make wills. You would hear things like, are you wishing me dead? Are you hoping I will die soon? What they don't know is the valid last will of a testator holds water more than any statutory law. So a testator can say, oh, I want my properties to devolve according to 1, 2, 3, 4. No law can remove that will and say, no, it's not standing or it's not valid. Once it's a validly done will, then it takes precedence over the statute.
So the way forward, if the widows must be protected, it's funny, but then how do you make your man begin to think in that light? Look, you need to do a will. We have 3 daughters. We need to do a will. You know what the culture says. How do we get the man to begin to see the need to protect their wives and their families because a lot of nobody knows when it will come. Nobody knows when death will come. But then how do we get men to understand that there is a need for them to begin to look at this a lot more seriously in this age and time?
So we need to break the myth surrounding wills. Because like I stated earlier, in Nigeria, people do not like doing wills. Nigerians do not like writing wills. So we need to create more awareness and explain to them that you writing your will is not wishing death upon yourself. I think it's just a myth that has gone on over the years for people to think once I write a will, it's like I'm preparing for my deathbed. No, nobody prepares for these things, like you rightly said. Nobody knows when it would happen. So if you truly love that woman, if you truly love those kids as you say you do, then you should have a valid will. And it's no respecter of age. You don't have to be in your 50s to say, oh, now I'm 50 something, I want to write a will. You might be in your 30s, as long as you start having responsibilities and you have children that you care for and a spouse. Because most times she might not even have kids yet, but if she's not protected by your will, then nothing goes to her. Likewise, another gray area that people do not know is, okay, if a man makes a will and wills his belongings to his surviving spouse, if you assume that you are married to this man and you are not married, then you simply get nothing.
Could you take that again?
Okay. So if a man makes a will, and in his will, maybe it's drafted to read that I will all my belongings to my lawfully wedded wife or my spouse, as the case is. If you are not legally married to this person, then you don't get to inherit anything because you are not the lawful spouse. And I'm going to take that again and maybe break it down. You know, over the years, people are used to, oh, we had a church wedding. I've had cases where you come up and say, oh, we got married in church, so we are legally married. What we don't know is that there are churches that are licensed to conduct statutory marriages. So if a church is not licensed to conduct such a marriage, and you go get married in that church, and you don't follow up with the marriage registry or to make sure you get that registered, then you are not married. So you see people hold on to certificates given in churches that are not duly licensed and say, I'm the lawful wedded spouse. Even maybe get their man to make a will. And then at the long run, it passes on. You want to break down the will. And then you find out that you're not even married to this person.
Just to highlight, people need to understand the emphasis of statutory marriage and what is legal. Is it a certificate obtained in courts or from a licensed statutory, from a church that has a statutory license, or customary marriage? What is the basis under the law, the solid basis to say, okay, I'm legally married to this man, so I have the right to his will?
Okay. So there are different types of marriages in Nigeria. We have the statutory one, as we've rightly said, and we have the customary marriages. However, they all have requirements. So I'm going to start with the statutory marriage. If you want to be statutorily married to somebody, then you need to go to a marriage registry to make sure you get the certificate. However, there are some churches, right, from the Ministry of Interior that have been licensed to conduct marriages. So they are licensed, they are called licensed churches. And guess what? They are just 60 in number.
Just six?
Just 60.
Oh,
60 in the whole of Nigeria.
Wow.
And you know, even in your area, you probably have 1,000 churches. And weddings are conducted almost every weekend.
Saturday, yeah.
So in that case, you might be ignorant of this fact. So you just walk into a church, they make you sign papers, you didn't follow up by taking it to the registry to get that registered, to make sure that you are legally married, and then you build for years.
A lot of Nigerians are not legally married.
when I got this invite, I said, a lot of us, I'm not even going to remove myself, are sitting pretty on this table. Because the actual truth is what you don't know, and it's no respecter of education, it's no respecter of persons, it's not, oh, I'm learned, I'm well traveled, I know these things. You might think you know, but you don't.
Yeah, okay. So let's look at this angle.
He's not sure if he's legally.
No, of course. I know I am very legally married. I married in a church that is licensed, a Catholic church that is licensed.
Did you check it out?
Yes, I did.
Brilliant.
Because the reason why is this? I refused the registry marriage because I wanted a priest to be the first
to bless you.
To bless me, to bless my union. So I went to a Catholic church that is registered. I can mention the name right now. You can check it up if you have Divine Mercy Catholic Church.
Pardon me?
Divine Mercy Catholic Church.
Divine
Mercy Catholic Church.
Mercy. I'll check that out.
As in Lekki phase one. So my question is this. I just mentioned the Catholic Church. There are a series of other churches. Pentecostal churches. Big brands with subs scattered across the country. Now, if the big brand, as a brand name, has a license, let's use the Redeemed Christian Church of God as an example. It's a big brand. I use the word brand. I talk business most times. And then, as a church, as a brand, it has a license. Does that give license to all the other sub-churches that you have scattered across the streets and across the suburbs?
So, to be candid, I do not think so. And I'm going to explain why. I stand corrected.
And same as the Catholic Church too, because
corrected.
Yes.
But then upon my research, because like I said, it's an area that touches everybody. Okay. So when I got the invite and I was trying to prepare and research this topic area, that was when I discovered that they were licensed churches, and there's a website for you to check.
Yes.
It's online. And then I realized that these churches you mentioned, they mention them according to their area.
The license is
the licensed churches. The licensed churches.
Yes.
So they will tell you, so I'm Methodist Church of, and then they will mention the area, Agara, for example, or so place in Ilorin, or Shaki, and the address
is specified.
They are specified. So I wouldn't say there's an umbrella license that once it covers the umbrella church covers, because what you should also know is that you use the Redeemed Church, for example. Yes. There are a lot of Redeemed churches that pop out in corners that I'm sure the general overseer probably does not even have an idea that there's a Redeemed Church in that corner. Or do you understand what I mean? So are you saying anybody who branches that church gets something on paper is married? No. So when I checked online, I discovered that they had addresses and location
of licensed
and phone numbers and email addresses of duly licensed churches, and as I said, there are just 60 of them
in the whole of Nigeria.
Look, I think this is an eye-opener for aspiring couples here right now. You want to be sure you are getting married legally. You need to check out where you're getting married. But then, just in case you want to get married at one church beside your house that is not registered, you need to go to the registry.
Absolutely, I was going to say that. So I respect that. A lot of us grew up in the Christian way. We believe church blessings over anything. Once the church blesses it, but the place of law cannot be substituted. Also, a lot of people believe in customs, traditions. Once they've paid my bride price, it's done, it's covered. There are requirements to be fulfilled, and these requirements sometimes needs to be documented. Because if you are going to present it before a court of law, the court would only decide based on what is right in front of them. What documents do you have to prove? It's not enough for you to just say, oh, they came to pay my bride price and they prostrated and brought 50 tubers of yam. What do you have?
You have to go that way. That's like an Igbo.
So there are requirements to be met, and you need to meet them. So likewise, if you know you want to go that route, make sure to drag this person to the registry, because what they do is they also have requirements. They just don't issue marriage certificates, is it? They will tell you, oh, we have to put your names out, we have to put it in the there are requirements so that if anybody is crying foul somewhere to say, oh, he's betrothed to me, not married before, because they have their register, they are assumed to check. Although they don't do their due diligence. Otherwise,
and they don't have a single server to say that just punch the name David and Tolu, and then it pops up.
Absolutely.
So you could have registered
in Lagos, and then you go marry in Katangora, and then you find out that there are statutory marriages like 4, but the first one takes preeminence according to the law. So let's say somebody contracted a marriage in Lagos in the year 1985, and then 10 years down the line, 1995, it comes to Kano, contracts another marriage, because like you said, there's no databases, there's nothing. It's a marriage registry. That one in Kano is void. It's null and void, because there's already a statutory marriage in place that has not been properly dissolved.
Wow.
So let's look at the place of customs now. The customary angle to the conversation. You mentioned Kano. You mentioned the north, where the man has a license to marry as many wives as he wants to marry. So let's begin to understand the place of customs and the law. What's the meeting point there? When does a customary marriage becomes legal?
Okay. Thank you for that question. So the law is a respecter of customs, as we all know. However, when it starts to infringe the rights of its people, then that custom will be either abolished or becomes voidable. So where there is a cross, so let's say the custom says this. If it does not infringe anybody's human rights, then I think it's good to go. But once there's an infringement, then there's an issue with the law.
The customs will also tell you that an infringement is relative.
Okay.
Because you look at in some culture, people are allowed, and religion as well, people are allowed to marry minors, get married to minors. But the law frowns at it.
So the law is frowning at it, but it's not saying
there is a Sharia law.
So I'm about
that is subservient to the Constitution of Nigeria.
So now, can I say something very quickly? The law would not go into people's houses and check to say, are they infringing your rights here? You come to the law. You bring into the fore. What you notice in these places that you have mentioned is that because people don't want to be stereotyped or ostracized, they abide by these customs. So nobody's complaining. It's just like when people say, oh, Nigerians are used to suffering. We are used to adapting. Nobody's complaining. So if you're not complaining, the law is got enough on its plate already. But then I'm sure if somebody stands up to say, oh, they want to marry my 10-year-old daughter off, and I'm not in support, even though I'm from the north, then I'm sure the law will protect such a person.
So I want to ask about widows. What should be the first point of call when a widow feels she's abused, or how can the courts protect her from the abuse and deprivation? If she's been intimidated and deprived and doesn't know her left or right, what is the first point of steps and action point that she needs to take?
Thank you. I always tell people, the first step for anybody is speak out. It doesn't matter if you feel you have been disadvantaged, widows, non-widows, speak out. From speaking out, somebody, even if you don't know the address or office of a lawyer or of somebody that can help to uphold your rights, somebody that you're speaking to will know what to do. Now there are a lot of agencies that deals with women's rights, sexual rights, and what have you. Even if you speak up and you cannot afford a lawyer, you can always go to these agencies to help fight for whatever cause you think is fair or what injustice you think has been meted out to you.
Okay, is there a way the law can be tweaked or amended to sort of protect widows? We understand, yes, maybe people have failed in terms of, a man has failed in terms of protecting his wife from all. Yes, because if a man fails to protect his wife and put her in the law. Yeah, but I think will. It's only exposed her to damages of family members who might, some people don't even have the issue of family members, but some people have the issue of family members who want to take over. You understand? So what can be done in the context of the law to protect widows? Because widows are going through the most, or have gone through the most, even up until now in Nigeria. Is there a way the law can be amended? Because already we're failing to get the rights when you get married and get married legally. Look at that, it says 60 license. A lot of Nigerians don't have that information. So technically some people are not really married.
Absolutely.
Because they did not go to registry. And if something happens,
they're living
on the edge. So what can the law still do to protect widows in this instance? Could it be amended?
So now I'm not one to always jump and say the law is not protecting anybody. I always say, how do you use the law that we have? The ones that are already been stipulated, how are we using that law? And that's why I keep mentioning agencies, because not people think, oh, when I need to approach the law, I need to go to a lawyer, and a lawyer is expensive. How do I deal with that? Where do I even begin to start from? Do you understand? So I would say, if you should ask me, so this is not outside law, I would say create more women agencies that helps widows and vulnerable women, so to speak. Because if it's when they, okay, I'm going to use other jurisdictions as example. It's not everything people even take to court, or they go to agencies, they go to NGOs, and then they take it upon themselves to fight for women, fight for widows, make sure they're not disadvantaged, they are not left in that circle. So if there are more agencies, more women groups who are standing up for these widows, probably women who have been through this themselves, so they can speak from an authoritative point to say, I know what this is like, I know how the family is like, I know the spiritual battle and the physical aspect of what you're going through. So I can step in and advise you accordingly. Because, I've noticed something. I was discussing with Mr. Musari just outside to say, even when you're sitting on the law nicely and you think the law has covered me, like you are saying, can the law, and there are laws in place to say do not touch widows. You notice that because of the decadence of the society, even if you approach the station first, they would answer who is richer. So whoever is intimidating you gets there and slips something, what happens? You are thrown out. And then you would say the law has failed. The law has not failed you. There are laws in place. Like I said, there's even a case, the OKJ versus OKJ case, that protects widows and female kids and gender not based on sexes and all. So the law is not stuttering. The law is standing on its own. Are we applying the law as we should? That should be the question.
All right, Ms. Oluwa Aduro-Dola Jimo, lawyer. I did see politician as well, but let's allow that slide. Thank you. As far as this set is concerned, you are a lawyer. You're giving us your expert opinion as a lawyer on this matter. So from all we've talked about, the very first point to protecting the Nigerian woman or the widow is ensure that you are legally married.
And
that's the first step before you could talk about protection. Then try and see how you can make your man do a will. Some men will shy away from. We don't have time. If you can in 30 seconds.
30 seconds. I know we don't have time. This appeal is to men, and I'm appealing. Like I said, we're all sitting pretty on this table. So nobody's going to come and hear their dirty linen. Please, if somebody should mention to you, be it your wife, be it a friend, should tell you, please draft a will. They are not wishing you dead. They are not hoping you're going to die next year or next month. They are simply telling you, protect your loved ones.
Yes.
If you love me so much, draft a will.
So you're just drafting the will, giving it to the
rightful owner. So first step, like I said, make sure you are legally the spouse, and then draft a will.
And give it to
a valid will.
Leave the will. The will is the man that writes the will. He decides what.
They need to find the will now.
No,
they need to give it to you.
She won't know what's in the will or not, but he will pass the will to a lawyer. Thank you so very much
for your time
with us. Tolu, let's draw the curtain right in this segment.
This is where we say our goodbyes. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Tolu Ajibola. Thank you for joining us.
And my name is David Babudike. Coming up next is What's Hot. Stay with us.